Charleston White's been faking a gangster by reading books and talking to other people. He became a Crip and a authorized Crip through Melvin Farmer. And nobody know him in LA before that. And then nobody know him after that.
Wait a minute. Charleston White was claiming to be a Crip?
See, what y'all don't know is...
Yes. You didn't know that he learned how to...
At that age, at the age that he met you?
When he met me in 2018, Charleston White came to Los Angeles where he had been followed. I didn't know him at all. Charleston White came to me. I sent you the video. You've seen it, where it says, his stating, Melvin, I've been following you on social media. I liked what you're doing. You're one of the very few ex-gang members that don't brag about what you're doing and trying to help the community. This is how I met Charleston White. And he said, I just had to meet you, and I came all the way from Texas just to meet you. And that's how me and Charleston became together.
Under the influence of not knowing, he became a real Crip. He was getting molested and bullied in the facility he was in the juvenile facilities. He know Bub, one of the boys that was in, because how do you be in a place for 4 or 5 years and you have nobody to come on and say, oh yeah, I know him, he was legitimate. He was in protective custody in Gideon's juvenile facility, and a white lady by the name of Miss Popple came and brought him a book about Monster Cody. And he read the book and led the lifestyles of Crips in California. And when he came out, he started telling boys that didn't know anything about gangbanging, about Crips. And he said he was a 60 Crip, because that's what the guys had told him when he first got there, that he was a 60 Crip. But he read about Monster Cody. He didn't know that Monster Cody was an 8-tray gangster Crip. And he didn't know that 8-tray gangsters and the 60s had a war for 20 years. So when he got out and got in contact with Melvin Farmer Skull on Facebook, he came to California trying to find a Crip life, and went into St. Andrews Park, the headquarters for 8-tray gangster Crips, and asked for Skull and told them that he was a 60 Crip. And they like, when? How is you a 60 Crip here? And Melvin told him, oh, he from Texas. He with me. So his whole past came from Melvin Farmer. For you to, the same way he turned state evidence on his crime partner, he turned rat on Melvin Farmer, because he had him looking real crazy in California when he went back to Texas.
Wait, let me get this straight, man. Charleston White shows up at St. Andrews Park and
what
says,
did he, Melvin?
I'm from the 60s.
He came up to St. Andrews Park and told me he's from the Rollin 60s. And he's been following me on Instagram and all social media outlets, audio, video, prints, and that he admired me and wanted to meet me. And so we had a discussion about some things that we videotaped right there, and I took Charleston White up under my wing. And in fact, I was managing Charleston White, because he does have good messages when he ain't acting a fool. So I get him and me, Alex Alonzo. And in fact, it was in December 2018, I host the annual tribute to Tookie, to which you hear him say dispersion remarks later in the game. But in 2018, I was giving a tribute to Tookie, me, Alex Alonzo of Street Gangs. This when I had my radio show as KPFK. At that time, I had 2 shows that I had produced for this radio station. One was called Conversation Piece, and the other one was called Voices from the Streets. So I invited Charleston White to come along as my guest and be a co-host with me. So I got him on that, and then the Nipsey Hussle incident happened. That's how I ended up going to Nipsey Hussle. Me, Perry Manuel, Peak Winbush, Raymond Washington's daughter, Rayshana Washington, Byron Logan, Barefoot Pookie. We all went together and met over Perry Manuel's house, where you can see the film when we leaving, which was viewed by 21,000 people in 1 hour. But the one that was behind the camera while we was live was Charleston White. So when we go to Nipsey Hussle funeral, I'm with Farrakhan, because he was the speaker, and I just had finished talking to Black Sam. But Charleston wasn't running around like he say, I'm looking at air. Miss Charleston was with Rayshana Washington, walking all up in the rafters and doing what they do. And so after that, if you Google Althea Moses, Olympic sprinter and champion at the Olympics back in Atlanta with the bombing, she has a program in Inglewood where she needed a curriculum written for her program. So I said, I got Charleston White. At this time, he was calling himself Nat Turner, not Charleston White. It was Nat Turner. So I said, I got a buddy named Nat Turner that pretty good at writing curriculums for children and stuff, and we're gonna help you try to get the funding and so forth and so forth. Then another incident that I hear him talk about is when he started selling clothing and stuff off rodeo. That wasn't rodeo, that was down in the fashion district of Los Angeles that I turned him on to where we realized that, hey, we can get these bootleg purses or whatever, and they sell at exorbitant prices in Texas once they got there. So I gave him that hustle. And then he was telling me, man, I've never been arrested, I need a job. And I told him, man, if you've never been arrested, you can get any job you want out here in California, youth and the minority. So he started searching, and that's the job where he talked about a lady came and gave him a job at a halfway house. That is not where he got the job at. The job was in on Wilshire Boulevard in an office like One and Done program that assists ex-convicts and stuff like that. So I had been doing things with Charleston White way before what you see the transformation that's occurring now. I had managed Charleston White in 2018, 2019. In fact, all the way up to Valentine's Day of 2021. We did a show with Christopher Darden. I put that together in Texas during the cold front. And if you ever Google Melvin Farmer speaking on NBC News about the cold front, you'll see me mention him. So we've had a prior relationship way before now.
You had no idea about his criminal history or that he was associated with a murder or nothing. He never mentioned that.
Never. But I never did nothing around him as far as breaking the law. So then he had some guys that were Bloods in Texas. That's the 6th zone. That's all Bloods in Fort Worth. So I introduced him to Babalu. And Babalu ended up going out there doing a book signing. This right after he had came off of Keb Mac videos. Babalu had announced his book had been published and for sale. So I hooked him up with some guys that had came out that was staying in Marina Del Rey on a yacht for 3 or 4 days. And they paid $500, wanted to offer me $500 just to introduce them to Babalu. So no, I never had knowledge of Charleston's prior case for the murder. No, I never knew nothing of his history.
Why do you think that Charleston White has so much influence or able to keep this guy in jail? Like what's going on? Like, why is he continuing to keep this guy in jail also?
Well, he's not continuing to keep him in jail. He's assisting. In his assistance, it's not a doubt, because Charleston White was not the only one that testified against Antoine Doolittle. So but he's the only one that continually goes to the parole board against Antoine Doolittle. So it's not that he's in a position to say why he knows why he's keeping him in there, because now he's created a scenario. And Antoine Doolittle had no avenue of expression other than the prisons in Texas until he found the outlet to reach out to Melvin Farmer. So it's always been Charleston White's story instead of the truth. And for whatever reason, the other brother that was released, he just stays out of it, you know. So I mean that's the way Texas do. Let go and let God. You know, I'm just happy to be out here. So Charleston White has been able to run amok on everything in Texas because Texas boys believe that he worked with the feds, he worked with the police, and they scared to say anything. So the people that I talked to that was in the juvenile facility with him was like, man, I don't want to really talk about it now. That nigga wasn't doing none of that he was in there with us. But man, I ain't trying to shake no trees. I'm on parole. I'm still, because they still in the street. So the most of the people that he dealt with are still in the street. He's living somewhere on a witness protection program. He's not in the field. He's not. All this talk about him doing community work, where have you ever seen him doing any community work? Where have he's either in his bedroom or in a car that he's doing these commercials. You don't see him in a park. You don't see him passing out clothes. I do all this community work. First of all, he's a liar. I have no graduation. The university said he went to has no authorization of a Charleston White ever being in their school. All of that law stuff that he's talking about, changing laws, I don't see nothing in the court reports or in the legislation that Charleston White has assisted anything in juvenile detention. So all of this is bluff for non-thinkers. It sounds good, and I don't care about this. And Charleston White talk about all the gun violence he got. He's never shot anybody. The most he ever did, he said, it was Soulja Boy. He shot pepper spray in the air. And he said Soulja Boy ain't legitimate. And Soulja Boy shot somebody that tried to break in his house. Charleston White he got 20 guns, he claimed. He's never shot nobody with any of the 20. Show me the record. So Charleston White is a liar. He's an intimidator. And for people that live like him after Corona, a lot of life became introverted. And everybody relies on the podcasts and media to live their life. And he's a meme. He's the town jester. He's the Sambo for the black community. Fuck this, fuck that. I don't care. I heard that man say one time, fuck Moses. And where Moses is buried at. Wow. So he's an extremist. And we're the first people to call him out on his extreme bullshit.
So I'd like to get into a little bit of his testimony, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we are. That's where we're gonna go to next.